Special thanks to Affordable Prestige Cars for providing the Bentley in this review, of course, and for any who follow Beards and Cars, you will of course recognise their name. I've done plenty of reviews with them, so if you are in the southwest of England, in Somerset, or even a bit further afield, and you are looking for something like a Bentley, a Jag, that kind of machine, then of course, click the link right below in the description to check out their current stock. When it comes to used performance cars, Bentleys operate on a very interesting level in the market. See, on the one hand, they offer almost unparalleled levels of value for money. I mean, it's pretty much the cheapest way of hitting 200 miles an hour, certainly in complete luxury, and with this level of prestige and badge panache, well, honestly, nothing much really comes close. Even if you compare it to a Jag, an Aston, a Maserati, they don't quite have that presence that a Bentley has. Whether you like the look of them or not, they just do. It's just a fact. However, they also have a thick fog of worry and risk around them, because on the one hand, why are they so cheap? And secondarily, are the horror stories justified? And more specifically, of course, when it comes to this car, the Supersports, what difference is there between this one and others? Is it worth the premium on price? And what is it actually like to drive? Well, let's talk about the Supersports first, of course, specifically this model that I'm driving, and then let's get into the pros and cons after. First off, it absolutely is a very different car to a normal GT, and even if you compare this to the GT Speed, which I reviewed a while ago on the channel, which is already quicker than the normal GT, this is a different league. The 0 to 60 time is the best part of a second quicker, and they're not slow to begin with. They start off around 4.7 seconds, this is more like 3.7, 3.8 depending on who you ask. The top speed is even higher, 202 miles an hour in open top form, even higher like 204, 205 in hard top form. These are literal supercar numbers, and even if you look at the price of the top of the tree like this, which the Supersports was at the time, compare the price on this to what you would have to pay for a literal traditional supercar to match that. Well, you could buy a Mercedes SLR McLaren or a Porsche Carrera GT, maybe a Lamborghini Murcielago. You're paying six figures to this day, minimum, usually hundreds of thousands of pounds for that level of machine. And even though I'm not saying there's nothing that can compete, you know, a Nissan GT-R can go as fast as this for half the price, but that's not so much the point. Being a full, well-rounded supercar package for £60,000 used, well, that is a tempting offer. But here's the interesting thing. You can get a Continental GT for half that price. Sometimes even less than 20,000. I myself paid 16.5 for an 80,000 mile flying spur. So for sheer bang for buck, they are incredible. Which begs the question, should you buy a Supersports? What is the difference, and is it worth the premium on price? Well, to me, funnily enough, this car falls into exactly the same parameters as an RS badged Jaguar, an XFRS or an XKRS, especially the later models in that classy French racing blue. This is not a car for somebody who just wants a Bentley. If all you care about is driving a Bentley, if all you care about is having 9/10 of the Bentley experience all the time, then just buy a GT, or maybe buy a Speed if you want some more, well, speed. This one is the Bentley for people who want the Bentley. It is the top of the tree, and even though of course they've gotten faster since then with the facelift, at the time this was the ultimate Bentley. And I would actually argue that this is the closest any Bentley of that generation felt in a true supercar sense, going from an outstandingly fast GT car to a true, unarguable supercar. This is a supercar, and it feels like one through and through. In fact, you'll see in some of the footage in this review that even not using full throttle in wet conditions, the sheer pace that this picks up launches you toward the horizon so rapidly, it's unbelievable for a car that weighs a hair under a Land Rover. This is a 2.3, 2.4 ton car, which is ridiculously heavy. Even if you compare it to other luxury cars, it's one of the heaviest cars on the road. So the fact that they perform and certainly handle anywhere near as well as they do is a testament to how remarkable they are. And that's the thing. You can criticize Bentleys, you can dislike them, you can base, past experiences and stories and say, such as in my occasion, that I'd probably never buy one myself again, at least a flying spur. But at the same time, even I can say they are magnificent. They are absolutely incredible. But is it worth the extra price? Well, to go back to what I said, that really depends on you, not on the car. See, if what you want from a Bentley is something that can do 200 miles an hour, is super comfortable with 4 seats, tons of space, has that incredible look, and of course the badge, then honestly, no, there is no reason to buy a Supersports at all. There's no reason to buy a Speed either. You could just buy a normal Continental GT in whichever era you want, and you will get most of what you can enjoy out of this car as well. This car is not an old man's Bentley. This is a distinctly more youthful Bentley. This is a Bentley for people who want to be scared by their Bentley, because this is a terrifyingly fast car when you really put your foot down. These days, of course, we have electric cars doing 0 to 60 times of 2 seconds, but still, there's something about a vehicle that feels like it has the fingerprint of a small meteor hurtling toward the horizon as quickly as this one can, that is seriously unnerving but also reassuring. It's a really strange feeling to be absolutely terrified but feel like you're also absolutely safe. Kind of like if you were to lose control, you'd probably wipe out half of Somerset instead of the car. It's an incredible feeling to have, and it's a very reassuring one, and you can even find footage of police chases, such as that one where I think it was a Bentley that was fueled by a crackhead driver or something that just wipes out multiple police cars and carries on going. They really do feel unstoppable. The ironic thing about a Bentley is, the thing that can stop it the most is actually itself. Because they are so heavy for a reason. They are packed full of so much tech, and there's so many things that can go wrong that they are, to some degree at least, a time bomb. Now take this car as an example. I was actually going to run a competition to win this exact car with affordable prestige, and it was going to be an awesome prize. But because the car had been sitting for just a little bit too long, the battery didn't like that, and it started throwing up error codes that shouldn't have been there. Errors which technically didn't exist. The car just thought that they did because it had been sat. It was then put on charge, and every single problem went away. So to me, the key with any car like this, and you will so often see this in Bentley forums, Jaguar forums, Aston forums, Maserati, any kind of car like this, a trickle charger is your best friend. Because unless you plan to use this car literally every day or every other day, you need a trickle charger for the battery. Because the battery is the car's biggest enemy. It's not that the batteries are bad, it's they're so temperamental because so many different systems are running even when the car isn't running, that the car really doesn't like to sit there. Same goes for Jag XKs, same goes for Astons, same goes for Maseratis. They do not like to sit. If you compare that though to a Bentley which is used all the time, well, even if you look at my own Flying Spur that I had, the issue that I had was never really the battery's fault, because I did use it regularly. The issue I had was water got in, which is a totally separate issue. I would say that the ideal scenario for somebody looking to buy a Bentley is somebody who has two things. One is a garage, because this is not a car that deserves to be parked outside. Regardless of the convertible roof, it needs to be in a garage. It deserves that. It is a £120,000 plus car, £180,000 when new in the case of this one. You shouldn't have a car like that parked outside, so it deserves that. Secondly, get a trickle charger. Even if you don't plan to only use it as a weekend toy, if you plan to use it as a daily even, you must have a trickle charger available at least for if you ever do need to leave the car. If it does need to sit there for a weekend or for a holiday or for any reason, that trickle charger will eliminate 99% of your problems. Now on top of that, that's not to say that these are going to be easy to live with. Everything is expensive because they are a very, very specialised piece of machinery, and let's not forget that the car gets its heart from the same program that developed the Bugatti Veyron. Every single Volkswagen platform that uses a W engine is sourced back from the 1990s when they were building what would become the Bugatti Veyron. So from the Passat W8 to the Bentley W12 to the Bugatti W16 and everything in between, these are all products of Bugatti's development. You have to imagine that when buying the car. It's not quite as insane to live with as a Bugatti, but you have to treat it with that level of expectation. If you can just about afford a Bentley, absolutely don't buy one. You should buy a Bentley when you can afford to treat the car as it should be treated. Make sure it gets used regularly, make sure you can afford the servicing. Servicing, incidentally, is essential, not only on one of these, but any Bentley, really any prestige car, to be honest. And what you're looking for in particular, or at least my advice, is look for the fewest amount of owners, of course the lowest mileage you can get, but more importantly than the mileage, a full service history. Because the reality of a Bentley is, when used regularly, when treated well, and when serviced, these can easily do 120, 140, 160,000 miles, as risky as that sounds. But my advice would be, there is absolutely nothing wrong with owning a Bentley that has over 100,000 miles. The key is, though, you need to be the person who put those miles on it, because then you can know what the car was treated like. And you taking a car past 100,000 miles is much more trustworthy for yourself, as long as you've treated it well, than buying a car that somebody else has done that mileage in, because you just can't know how it was treated. Paper trail or not, you don't know what they did to the car, if that makes sense. So sure, if you own one, put 60, 70, 80,000 miles on it, keep driving it until oblivion. But buying one from somebody else with that kind of mileage, that's where you need to be a little bit more cautious. So overall, I would say that this is a tremendously impressive car. The Supersports honestly is a very different animal to the GT. What on paper seems like just a 621 horsepower version of the same idea. I mean, even the weight isn't that much different, still has 4 seats, there's no roll cage, there's nothing overtly crazy about the car on the surface, and if you choose a more subtle colour, most people wouldn't even see the difference. And yet in practice, it really does feel totally different. The brakes on it, the ceramics in the case of this car, are incredibly powerful. The brakes are one of the most impressive things about it, because you can stop on a dime. You can stop so sharply in a car that weighs this much that you feel like you're going to go through the window. It's incredible what you can do with a machine like this. And if you are looking for that ultimate supercar tier Bentley experience, something which genuinely can keep up with 911 turbos, with Nissan GTRs, even with full-on Carrera GTs, then this is a car that can actually do that. And let's not forget, just to give it some more perspective, this car from 2010 is still faster than a Rolls-Royce Wraith. That is insane when you compare it 1-to-1, especially when you can buy this for 60 grand used, and 60 grand is quite a lot to spend on a Continental when you can get them, as I said, for less than half, sometimes even less than a third. I would be very cautious about going to that lower end of the spectrum though. So overall, that's it for my thoughts on the Supersport. I would love to hear the thoughts of those who have owned these. Of course, if you were an owner of a speed version, I would recommend checking out my review for that. And if you are curious about how the Flying Spur compares, then I have of course done a review for that as well, which is more from the owner's perspective, as I was at the time. For me, I do think they are magnificent cars. I think that as long as they're used regularly, they will serve you incredibly well, and regardless of how you end up leaving the experience after owning one, whether it was a positive or a negative, you will always remember it. Because even though it may not end well for some people, depending on the car you buy, it is like nothing else. Bentleys are incredible. They are a testament to incredible engineering, cars that have no right to be anywhere near as good as they are, just by the sheer size and weight of them alone. So if nothing else, they demand respect, and they certainly earn it. So overall, that's it for my thoughts on the Supersport. Of course, check out my other Bentley reviews, as I said, and if you are curious about how some of its rivals compare, maybe a Jag XKR, a Maserati perhaps, or an Aston, then I've done reviews for those as well. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.